Gleaning in a field where there may be only scanty nourishment to be found. The problem of the super other, or um, of the limits of the immediately intelligible. So, all throughout Heidegger's work, he's followed the principle in one way or another that we have to think everything new each time. But the most noble expression of the problem of the immediate intelligibility um, is the statement at the beginning of the later book, which in one edition it says 1972. Not sure actually when the lecture was given on time and being, where he reverses the order as of course, it was originally promised in the first 1927 edition, but it wasn't possible to carry it out. So there he's talking about Trackle, the poet Trackle. We may not understand the poet, but if he were here speaking to us, even though we could not understand, we would like to listen for a long while, have him repeat the poem to us often, perhaps, and we would abandon any claim to immediate intelligibility. The same with the lecture by Heisenberg, the same with a painting by Paul Klee. So the problem of the super other, let's advance towards it by starting with the problem of the subaltern. So the subaltern is the problem of intelligibility, which is, so there's a trivial barrier to understanding the problem of subaltern, which is that the concept is taken to mean somebody who's dejected in some way, or somebody who's impoverished, or et cetera, et cetera. But the problem in its precise formulation is, well, not in its precise formulation, but in its precise general meaning, is the illegible. That somebody has something to say and it's illegible in the general Sprachspiel, or it has no cogency to the larger ear. So there's, let's put it this way, this is a way to approach it. There's people making decisions, they have to decide what's important. Certain things, there's a list of things that are considered to be important. There's a triage of how important they are, what the order of importance is, how pressing they are. And what these people are saying has no place on that list and is basically unintelligible. So Gayatri Spivak gives the example of an Israeli woman who was, I believe, not so much, I'm not sure on the details, but I'm going to present it this way, is she was instinctually a pacifist rather than more on a principled level. And because of the military service that both women and men have to do in Israel, she killed herself because she couldn't take on the job as somebody who would kill somebody else. And then the comment is that this position of pacifism was totally unintelligible, or it was simply had no cogency in that context. So, of course, in America, we have the idea of, I think especially because of the Quakers, we have a strong notion of pacifism. And so, of course, there's examples of that in World War I. Muhammad Ali, when he, I don't know if he actually said that, but when he said, I have no quarrel with no Viet Cong. The point that was taken from that is um, he might have had a quarrel with someone, with Hitler, for example, but he had no quarrel with no Viet Cong. So he selected. He wasn't a pacifist. He just said, "I don't go along with this war." So that's why um, he got in. That's why he was got in trouble over that. So, but if he had simply said, "I'm a pacifist," then we have recognition. It's legible. It's recognized. So. Um, the problem with the subaltern is then understood generally as this problem of people that have illegible um, claims and that nobody can understand. Um, in this sense, Spivak says there is nobody who can stand up and say, "I'm subaltern," because basically they're people that are still not immediately intelligible. But this is the subaltern, so I'm speaking instead of the sub-other of the super-other. So those are all examples. Paul Klee, Werner Heisenberg, um, Ernst Trakl, and to some extent Heidegger himself. So of course all the great philosophers are often saying that, as Heidegger did, that he wasn't understood. But of course he was understood to some extent. So Isaiah Berlin has said that the limits. So let's superimpose on this field where we're trying to get some nutrition from, gleaning something from Isaiah Berlin's definition of the human. So he says, if somebody comes to us and they say that what they like is to stab pliant or resistant surfaces with a knife, and then if they're we come to see that what they are after is not some kind of sadism or enjoying causing pain to somebody or something like that, which we could understand even if we didn't approve of it. But if they simply liked it for its own sake and we were given to understand this, then we would have to say they're not a human being. They're not. We can't. The things that their habitual way of being doesn't fit in with ours, and then we have to draw a circle and say this one is outside the circle. So this is where I wanted to try to show an extremely subtle point, which is that on one level, so in Isaiah Berlin's example, we have somebody who we've understood, but having understood them, we then say, this is too weird, we have to put this person outside. But then the question of both the subaltern and the super other are questions of things that aren't intelligible, that are illegible, that have been somehow proactively effaced. So this is really the point of the mere Lichtung, or the opening. It's the point which is just like, so the best I can do, I guess, to just illustrate it is to point to, again, to the unknown masterpiece of Honoré de Balzac, which came out around the time Hegel died. So this is the age where there's a huge influx of what we now understand as anthropology. So anthropology at that time, actually it shows directly in the change of the word anthropology. So anthropology meant basically what we now mean by well, it doesn't mean what we mean by psychology exactly, but anthropology was the study of the human, where the human was understood to be basically something like Platonic psychology is what Kant still understood anthropology to mean. It's because anthropos means the human being, and the main thing about the human being is the study of its psyche, or psyche in Greek. And this is to understand things like that there's a bios, a thumos, and a logos type, and other such things. This is what anthropology meant until about that age. And then there began this huge influx of, which had already begun in the 18th century, but still it increased so much that there's knowledge, more and more knowledge of other cultures. Hegel's philosophy of history is based on this to some extent, although apparently he made some silly and crude errors which are not particularly interesting about crocodiles, apparently, I don't know, in South America, but that's doesn't matter. But in any case, it only matters in the sense that at that time the knowledge was still a little bit flawed, but it was still compounding. But ever after then, there's so much comparison that we creep upon the age when I suppose the best thing I can point people to is this these series of articles that anthropologists have written concerning Wittgenstein's treatment of the Golden Bough, of Fraser's Golden Bough. So Fraser's Golden Bough is sort of viewed as the latest, the last statement of the view that the human being is to be understood totally on a scale of savage, barbarian, and civilized, on a totally vertical scale. And then I think while Fraser was still alive, probably the Young Turks came in, so to speak, Malinowski and Boas, who then presented the view we currently have, which is overlaps. So the notion of the subaltern and the notion of deference and Derrida and so forth, which is basically that each of the cultures is different rather than part of a hierarchy. This creates the problem of the subaltern intelligibility issue, in that from within something like a Marxist perspective of emancipatory practice, there's this idea that some people are not included in it, not intelligible to it, and this is then you get the slogan about every voice must be heard and so on, and then you get the pushback from Zizek about the yes, but do we want to hear the voices of certain people that are evil? Must they be included also? And so, but then you see there's a radical point of this where if their voices aren't even intelligible yet, if we have this unknown masterpiece situation of the great painter who's painted a painting that has yet nobody has adjusted to understand it. So this is the same thing in physics, by the way, as Sir Michael Atiyah has made the most obvious and straightforward. To me, it's very obvious and straightforward. So everything I say, all that I can do is say what seems cogent and intelligible to myself. I can't have, if other people don't understand it, they could ask questions, but all I can do is that there's no other standard than your own Dasein. That's it. So either that, or you can try to adapt to whatever the going standard is. But from within that horizon, then we see that the cogency, the people that understand the cogency of the question of bringing in something new, which may be good, becomes very powerful. So I think, the superimposing in a kind of confused way of those problems, maybe it could be laid out more clearly, but I just that's the first statement of it, I guess.